What's going on, guys? Back with the newest episode of All That Glitters. I'm your host, Kalen Hurley. Let's start this show. So, this being a Vegas Golden Knight podcast, as a priority, we have Vegas news. So, we're going to start the show with that. And then my old team, Vancouver, has some news. And there's just been some fun around the league today. So, we started finally seeing some balls drop and some trades made and some moves made with some teams. So we're going to get into it today. It might not be a giant long show. I think the longest one's been about a half hour. So it could get up there. I could go on tangents, but for the you know what? Let's just get into it. So yesterday, we'll start with yesterday. Today moves were made, but yesterday some rumblings that started. I don't remember the analyst's name, but he either writes for or is an insider with Carolina. Said, hey, there's some smoke here around Tomas Hertl coming to the Canes, return unknown, everything unknown. When you start diving into it, thinking it from a Vegas standpoint, not my favorite move to make. I think a strength of ours with this team since Jack has came here has been down the middle, only to get made better with the addition to Hertl last year. So, we had Jack, Hertl, Carlson, and Waugh. And I think, I have my opinions on Waugh as a player with his discipline and taking stupid penalties, but as a fourth line center, he might be the best fourth line center in the league. If not, he's in the top five. Vegas's fourth line in general, when it's the normal fourth line of Howden, Waugh, and Kolesar, that might be the best fourth line in the league. Just the way they play, their chemistry at this point, that they've been together for so long. Howden definitely makes his moves up and down the lineup, and he's used his wing a lot. He's not normally. He's used his wing a lot, but he'll come in and play center in pinches during some injuries and things like that. But not touching the ethos of the middle in my head was very important. Now, started to wrap my head around why. There's the rumors out that Pietrangelo might miss this season, or he might miss most of this season, or he might just be medically retired. That is still in the unknown. So you're thinking, okay, this is a cap dump situation for Vegas to really make this push for Marner, because right now, on paper, it's impossible until we make a move out or Petra gets put on LTIR. Now, obviously, that's going to be, you see all these things. Oh, yeah, here we go. They're going to do it again. He's going to show up for game one of the playoffs. It's like, I really do think that he has something legitimately going on, whether that's illness or injury or whatever, what have you. I think that he's one of the people who I'm like, all right, like even if he does go on LTIR now, he's not showing up this year for the playoffs. And if he does, we'll hear it, and it may or may not be warranted at that point. I mean, you have a reputation, and I'm going to speak on someone with a reputation later. So I understand the duality and the maybe the cherry picking of reputations, but for this part, it is what it is. If he shows up and plays game one of the playoffs, again, rules are rules, and it is what it is. But it definitely does look suspicious. But I don't think that that's going to be the case, and I think that whatever's going on with Petro is legit, and all you can do is hope that for the best for the guy and his family. But it doesn't sound like it's going to be anything like, life altering or threatening. It just might threaten his hockey career. So you get the rumblings of Hertl again. It's cap dump seemingly. About an hour or so later, starts to slow down. And that same guy said, hey, you know what? Right now the talks have slowed down. This thing's going to get done Saturday, or something's going to be closer to move Saturday. All right, well, that's that. And you don't really hear anything. Today we kind of heard Chris Johnson say, like, hey, that's not happening. So to me, that says a couple of things. Either Petro's definitely done, or maybe someone like a Barbashev is out, and then, Nick Hague's not going to get re-signed and things like that. not the same, but if you package like not package, but if you take Barbie's contract and Nick Hague's contract out, you get a little bit over what Hurdle was making. So you subtract two to add one in Marner and things like that, and then you're making your little dinky dunky signings afterwards. So Chris Johnson kind of poured some cold water on that, and cool, good. I like our middle. I like Hurdle. I liked him and Dorofeev. I thought that they worked really well together. And then I don't remember what time it was. Was it evening? Maybe early evening? Maybe late afternoon, somewhere in there. Um, Reilly Smith gets extended. Cool. Chose not to go test the market. Signed a 1 year, $2 million deal. I think it's $1 million in salary and $1 million in bonus. So, but against the cap, it's $2 million. Cool. I'm super happy with that. Every Puckpedia GM, formerly cap friendly, but every Puckpedia GM thing I had when I'm signing Reilly, it was always team friendly. But I actually signed him to 2.5. So for him to take less is super cool. Super cool. I mean, I really don't think that there's much guessing where he's going to play. He's going to play alongside William Karlsson. That's where he's thrived when he was moving and grooving with Vegas. He's always been on Karlsson's wing. So I'm happy to see that tandem back together. Bruce actually likes to, instead of working for lines, he likes to work in doubles. For a long time, that doubles was, Stevenson, Stone, and Reilly and Karlsson, and Jack and Marshy, and then you could kind of slot in the third winger or the other guy in as you saw fit. And he preferred to keep Waugh and Kolesar together at the same time too. So I like that little theory. Then you could kind of plug and play the others. Problem with that is, for me at least, that Bruce does like to get the blender out, and sometimes he might be a little bit quick to start blending these lines, and then they don't get an opportunity to get going, and yada 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 all down the road. But super good signing for Vegas. And you know what? Like I alluded to, AFP, that analytics site on Twitter, and it's just a website in general, but AFP on Twitter was saying, like, he was looking at like 3.5 to 4.5 million for his testing the open market. And to me, this is a testament to sometimes players, and it's very situational and it's very specific to the player, but sometimes players are willing to sacrifice dollars at the end of the day and at the end of their career to play in a place they like, play in a system they know. He likes to coach. He likes his line mates. His wife likes it here. The family's here. I've been over this before, but this is a very real, in real time example of taking a pay cut, staying where you want to stay. Now, very, very hot topic these days is, yes, we are a no tax state. I can't help that. Does that help us? I think quite obviously it does. You're having people who are getting moved now, a la Mason Marchment. Basically, Jim Nill had openly said, like, hey, we're going to move you, but we're going to make sure it's to another no tax state. That doesn't really help the people who are saying, like, hey, like, it's not that big of a deal. Now, it is and it isn't, because it's not all 82 games, which could be potentially 84 coming up. That's another little topic we'll have later. But you're getting 41 of those games at home. So 41 of those games, half of your season won't be taxed. The rest of them will be taxed as states and provinces see fit. And that's that. So, does a $2 million contract go farther here than it does, say, California? 100 million%. Does a $2 million contract go further than it does in Vancouver? Sure does. But, at the end of the day, you're going to do what's right for your situation and right for your family and right for how you want to end your career. And I think that's what we're going to see here. I don't think Vegas resigns him past this year. I think that, I think the hopes are maybe they had a chat and, Reilly might be done after this year, and awesome. He's a Stanley Cup champion. He's had a great career, and, let him ride off into the sunset with the team he spent the most time with, and the team that, this is a homer comment, but treated him the best. I don't think that Pittsburgh and New York and Florida, I don't think they treated him poorly, but I mean, at the end of the day, Florida got rid of him, basically begged to get rid of him and Marshy at the same time. And then you had, you know, his little shortened stays with Pitt and New York. And I don't think he disliked his time in any of those places, but you definitely had a favorite, and it's definitely been wearing the gold and gray. So bang. Um, then Elliot Friedman said that he's hearing that it's basically done. Still waiting on term and in dollars. Which, you know what? For the first time, as I'm talking to you, I'm gonna see if there's been anything on that because I'm very curious. But um, Brandon Saad, we're gonna get. It looks like we're bringing him back too, and nothing. So on the group chat with Juan Maryland, the accountant, I don't think he gets. If he does, it's I think maybe $500,000 more, but because he's a little bit younger. Sorry, Brandon Saad, you do not look any younger than Reilly Smith. You are one of the unfortunate. You have Mark Stone face where you look 52 years old, but you're 32. Like, I'm going to be 36 this year, and I look much younger than Brandon Saad. Now, I am also not an elite level athlete, and I haven't spent my entire life in a hockey rink, so I don't know how that ages you. But woof, maroon. Anyway, I think he's going to get another very similar. He might get 2 times 2, or 2 times 2.5. But I don't, or maybe he's getting $1.5 million. I think we got him on that $1.5 million deal. Now, that being said, it was also, he had gotten paid his 4.5 from St. Louis. So last year he kind of double dipped and made $6 million. So I'm assuming it's going to be something very team friendly. I'm assuming it's going to be something short term, 2-3 years max. And he could be next year's Victor Olofsson, $1.5 million 1 year, and then see what happens there. No real rumors on the Victor Olofsson front. If you look into it enough and you look at the lines, and this is a kind of another indication, I think, that the hurdle talks are done, because the end of the year was Saad, Hurdle, Dorofeev, and then Olofsson, Carlson, Smith. So if they bring Olofsson back, it'll be like another $1.5 million deal, maybe 2 years, 1.5 per. So, $3 million deal total. But I'd still like to say, I still think that Tanner Jeannot would fit in a lot nicer on that third line. Keep Barbie, so we have two big, mean guys, one at the top, one on the third. That Hurdle line isn't going to wow you with physicality. If it is Saad, Hurdle, Doro, it's not going to wow you with defensive prowess. It is going to be a pure keep it in our zone, wear you down, and let's score. Hurdle is unreal on the faceoff. And, anytime the puck is on Dorofeev's stick, it's a chance to score if we're in the offensive zone. If the puck's on a stick in the defensive zone, I'm hoping it is to blast out of there or to maybe chip it out to the neutral zone, because not yet have I seen him mature into a more two-way player. Now, that being said, maybe he does take another step defensively. That'd be awesome. And then maybe another year underneath this system, Hurdle catches back on. It was his first full year back since an injury and his first full year playing his natural centerman role. So, maybe this year is where he takes a step. It's the same thing. Year one, I am not comparing the two, but year one, Jack Eichel was not a elite two-way player. He was definitely more offensive than he was defensive. He was good. He just wasn't like he is now. So maybe Hurdle's able to take that next step too. And if we're, this is my hope, is that with Hurdle being able to take a step defensively, Dorofeev being able to take a step defensively, maybe the inverse can happen with Carlson, where he can maybe take another step offensively, knowing he has someone who he's going to know where they're at basically at all times on the ice, and Reilly Smith on one side. And maybe whoever they bring onto the other side, is that more physical player, can create some space. Because I've seen Carlson do some pretty amazing things with the puck offensively. He's really good with the puck in his skates too. I just think that he's, when you call, okay, here we go. I'm a parent. I have a 2-year-old and a 3-month old, almost 3-year old, but in that purgatory area where he's not 2.5, he's not 2, he's not 3, he's like that 2.5, but like it's all the same, right? But developmentally, 2 and 2.5 are different, and then all of that. The months matter, right? But if you constantly are praising and saying, "Hey, you're so smart, you're so smart, you're so smart, you're so smart, you're so smart," there's places and studies that say, hey, maybe by saying you're so smart, that later on in life they think, oh, I'm smart, I don't have to study, I don't have to work hard at this, I'm too smart for it. And this is complete bro science and hearsay, but maybe to me, you hear, Carlson, you're so defensive. You're so defensive. You're so responsible on the defensive side. You're such a great two-way player. You're so defensive. You're so defensive. This is awesome. Man, you're shut down line. You're just shutting down everyone's top line. The way you shut down McDavid in the cup run. Oh my gosh. Defense, defense, defense. Maybe someone needs to remind him he scored 43 goals. I'm not saying he's got that in his bag again. I'm not saying he doesn't either, but I also have seen him do some pretty gnarly shit with that puck. At one point, I feel like it was either this year or last year, he had this like from Ovi's office turnaround backhand that he just threw in, and it just lasered into the top corner. That was unreal. And like I said, what he's able to do in close proximity with his skates in the stick is just, it's like having 3 sticks out there almost. So, I think maybe, I'm not saying he needs a sports psychologist to hypnotize him and get him into an offensive side of his game, but I think it's there. And I think with Jack taking some brunt, if Hurdle takes a step, Waugh obviously is Waugh. He's not gonna light it up with the goals, but he's fine both ways. Maybe if everyone takes a step towards defense, Carlson can relax a little and maybe be able to be a little bit more. I don't want to say aggressive, but maybe he can take an offensive mind, maybe a couple percent more. So we'll see. I don't know what happens with that, but that being said, is that Saad re-signing to me gives me hope that Hurdle's not gone. And the least players you turn over, the better continuity you're going to have on the ice from year to year. And like, it was either matched or we either tied or I think we tied our highest points in a season record this year. So, I mean, even if we did run it back without any additions, it's not like it was a bad team. So, we'll figure it out. I think even if we did take a step back, I still think we're second in the division. I don't think we're a wild card team. I still think we're a clear cut playoff team. And who knows? Maybe who knows what the top of the Pacific's going to look like. Pacific Division team, rival, whatever you want to call it, made a move earlier today that kind of sent some waves down everybody. Now, I did say I don't think Evander Kane is going to be an Oiler next year. I did think that they would have to retain some money somehow. I'm not saying he's not a useful player. And you have to separate the player from the off-ice stuff for one reason, and one reason only, is because there's so much negativity with his off-ice stuff and his age and his cap hit right now. There's so much bullshit and negativity with that I think sometimes people forget that he is a useful player. He's a bit of a rat. He's going to get under your skin, and he can score. He is a useful player. That being said, I got some heat on Twitter for this earlier. It was pretty funny. He is going to eat the locker room of Vancouver alive. First off, that's where he's from. He's from Van. Or near in BC. But San Jose had to waive him for contract termination. He had his bouts in Edmonton, and he was a good little boy in Edmonton for sure, but still had his little antics. I don't think you could tell the way McDavid, the way Connor would look at him in certain scenarios, and I don't think that those two blended very well. I think you put it aside, and McDavid's a professional, and Kane's a professional for hockey. And so, I think that they put their differences aside and played. I don't think that they went out to dinners. I don't think that they were hanging out on the weekends. Um, Kane is Evander Kane first, team second. So that old cliche adage is, the crest on the front means more than the name on the back. It does not ring true for Evander Kane. He is, he's a superstar, right? He wants you to see how he's dressed. He wants you to see the Rolls Royce or the Lamborghini that's pulling up. Although, gotta be rented, right? You owe Vegas Casino so much money. You're in bankruptcy lawsuits and stuff. So, rented, not rented, borrowed, however. Yeah, and that's the thing. So Vancouver gets. All right, let's rewind this back a little bit more. You let Brock Besser test the market. He doesn't want to sign 8-8 there. All of the BS that he went through with turnover with Bo Horvat, and then you bring in and then you have Quinn Hughes, and then the whole PDJT situation. And I'm not saying this is on Quinn taking over. I mean, he was put in a pretty bad locker room scenario after you get the captaincy. And he's not a grab him by the horns, super in your face, aggressive dude. He's pretty chill. I mean, all of his interviews, all of his stuff, he's a great captain. He's just kind of a more chill dude. So you're going to get those more vocal dudes in the locker room, and JT is one of those vocal guys. Okay, so you battle that out for the better part of a year. You finally get rid of what you think is the cancer in JT Miller. He goes to New York. You get Philip Hedl back. That's cool. I think Besser just wanted out of the noise and out of the nonsense, which fair on him. Everyone always says oh man, Toronto and Ottawa and Edmonton, these fans are crazy. Hey, remember, Vancouver almost burnt their whole entire city down. Win or lose, they were going to burn that city down. So that was going to happen anyway. So they're pretty psychotic fans as well. And they've been yearning for success for so long. And they finally almost get to, oh man, we got our goaltender, and then Thatcher Demko is just riddled with injuries. And then man, all right, well, Elias Pettersson, man, which one, right? There's 3 of them. But Petey, number 40. Look at this young stud with this crazy shot, and he's full of skill, and then he goes bouts of quiet. And then you get JT Miller, the most clutch gangster in the league. That dude's swagger, especially in big game moments. That's an unteachable, uncoached trait. You just possess it or you don't, and he has every ounce of it. I love JT Miller as a player. I think he's great. Now, I do think he's a hothead, and I think that in a team sport, there's kind of times and places, situations need to be right for you to have that. And if you're a hothead and you're screaming and you're this, that, and the other all the time, then people are going to stop listening. They're going to tune you out. And so it's actually kind of, in bringing it back to Quinn, it's kind of nice, because I bet if he does kind of come unglued one day in a locker room, everyone's going to be like, oh shit, Quinn Hughes is yelling at me. That's nuts. So JT leaves, and okay, PD is now, I think this year he takes a step forward. I can't anticipate him being quote unquote bad again this year. New coach, new year, JT's gone. Obviously, those two had something going on that couldn't be fixed, right? Whatever. But then you bring in Evander Kane, who's like a known not good dude in the locker room. He's not like a vibes guy. He's not like a Phil Kessel. He's not going to He's not going to be the music dude. He's not going to be like the jokester. He's just going to be the guy who shows up maybe on time. You're going to get the guy who goes and at the end of the day he's him first. He's going to take his pound of flesh if he thinks he wants it, whether or not the situation is appropriate. He's going to he's an impulse person. That's what it is. You act on impulse. And the problem is in a team sport, especially like hockey, where there's this unwritten code of conduct and these things is when you have a wild card like that on your team, it's not necessarily like it's not a bad thing, but it's definitely not a good thing when you're constantly going to have to wonder what's going on next. It's not a good way to operate. And I said it before in the last episode. Evander Kane is not a good dude. He's not a good person. That doesn't mean you're not allowed to play in the NHL. There's plenty of scumbags who play there, but like this dude might be the greasiest of scumbags. Like you have, it sucks too, dude. You're like a very talented on the like your game. No one can dispute that, but you're handsome, you're talented, you've made money. Like, why be such a piece of shit? Like, it's actually kind of crazy that you're, and like, I'm sorry, but you can't, it doesn't matter how many photos with sick kids you take. It doesn't matter how many charitable things you do. If you're part of hockey is for everybody movement and you want to bring diversity into the league, you can't be that. There's not enough of those things you could do to mask how big of a piece of shit you are. That's the problem. It's like, and then it just looks disingenuous. It looks fake as shit. And so you're sitting there and you're like, all right, cool. Like, yeah, he donated $1 billion to sick kids. But then he went home and ignored his own and hit his wife. Like, it's just and you know what? Those are wild accusations, but I'm not the first person to say it. I'm not the one doing all that. I'm not the one violating league stand down saying, hey, don't travel without telling us where you're going. And by the way, that behavior can terminate your contract. I'm not the one cross-checking dudes in the throat and then getting all pissy and moany when they seek retribution later. By the way, Evander Kane is the reason Petro almost lopped off Leon's arm. That's it. Like, so whatever. You know what? Yeah, I am a hater. I haven't liked them for a long time. I haven't liked them since I just never been a big fan of Evander Kane. He had a lot of talent. He had a lot of promise, but at some point, your attitude and your off ice person, who you are, means more than the person you are. I'm friends with a professional athlete. And I tell her all the time, I said, look, like, I don't like you because you're a professional athlete. I don't care. She might listen. Her name's Alex Kazan. She's a professional CrossFitter. So some people might not think that that's a real athlete. But I tell you what, I see her every fucking day work her butt off all the time. So that's about as professional of an athlete as you can get. But I tell her, I said, I could care less about you being an athlete. I don't give a shit. I didn't know I knew you aspired to be one. You became one while we knew each other. That's cool and all. What you do out there is unreal, and I'll root the hardest for you. But at the end of the day, I care because you're a good person. I like you because you're a great person, not because of what you do on TV or what you do in your sport. You could have all the success in the sport as you want, but at the end of the day, if you can't look yourself in the mirror, you can't pass your own red face test. Like, if you're looking in the mirror and you're getting all blushy because you're embarrassed about your actions, then you need to clean your shit up, man. Like, that's it. That's the end of the day. So, like, it doesn't matter. You can go ahead and you can get the Rocket and the Hart next year. I'm still going to think you're a fucking scumbag. Like, that's it. Whatever. Kick rocks. That's that. It's a bummer. Vancouver was my first team, and they got fleeced in the straight. They take on his entire contract of $5.125, and they sent a fourth and a fifth. No retain. So you're like replacing Besser with Kane, which is like a worse Besser. And older. He's going to be 34. Everyone said last year Marchessault was basically 1 foot in the grave at 34. And now everyone's like, this is a great move for Vancouver. That's nuts, dude. Did you see what happened in Nashville with Marshy last year? Now, provided Marshall was not the reason Nashville was bad. But I'm just saying, like, it's going to happen again. Matt Martin retired. He became an assistant coach or assistant to the assistant. I don't know. He's Dwight Schrute of the Islanders. That's it. Nothing really that happened. I said it was going to be short as half hour in. So, you know what? That's all I got today. Some Vegas news, some Vancouver news, unfortunately. And Evander Kane's still a shitty person. So, at the end of the day, thank you for your ears. See you later, Evander Kane. Ooh, that was rough. Thank you for your ears. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you all. If you like this, physically click like. That would be awesome. If you think that this was enjoyable enough that you think someone else would like to listen to my crazy talks, send it to someone, share it with everyone you know, and subscribe. That'd be really sweet. 7 subscribers away from my goal of 100 by the 4th of July. My house celebrates Canada Day and Independence Day, so please, it would be cool to do it 3 days earlier. It'd be cool to get 100 by Canada Day. So July 1st, July 4th, let's try to have 100 subscribers next week. So 7 more. And if you're listening to this, on YouTube, you've probably already subscribed. And if you haven't, shame, please do. I'm going to clip this portion just to say, hey, I know very intimately how many followers I have on Instagram and TikTok. Like it. Subscribe, please. There's only 7 of you. I have way more followers than 93 on Instagram and TikTok. So do your job because I'm doing mine. Thank you very much. Yeah. Besos, mi amigos. I'm out of here. And as always, go Knights.